What's going on, guys? Static here, and welcome back to Black Aperture. Now, between the last episode and today's episode, a lot of stuff's happened. Not so much in the facility, but more to do with Minecraft. As I'm sure you're all aware by now, the 1.3 update has come out, and that's ruined a lot, or not, I shouldn't say ruined, but it's broken a lot of things in Black Aperture. The first is the surface up here. I did originally have the surface set up with these upside down half slabs so that I could build on top of the surface and not have mobs spawn and sort of build flush with the surface as opposed to building half a block above it or whatever. However, mobs are now able to spawn on these upside down half slabs, which means that this surface is no longer spawn free, which is an absolute pain. That means I've got to come up with a new way of, or a new flooring design for Black Aperture to stop mobs from spawning. And so I was toying with a couple of ideas. Now, I don't have many blocks I can work with, basically just bedrock, ice, glass, and a couple of others. And so this is a design that I've been toying around with. I know it doesn't look like too much, but my basic thought process was that with the blocks that I've got, I don't want to make just the entire surface out of bedrock, don't want to make the entire surface out of ice, don't really want to make the entire surface out of glass or dispensers, upside down pistons, anything like that. Essentially to just make the whole world look, I don't know, just too boring. I know at the moment it looks pretty boring with the half slabs, but now that I'm sort of forced to change the flooring, I thought why not make it something interesting. And so when I was thinking of what I wanted to do in the way of flooring for Black Aperture, I straight away thought of like a hexagon sort of pattern. A lot of the time when you see futuristic stuff or stuff that's supposed to be futuristic, hexagons or the tessellating hexagon pattern is included. Now, I'd originally tried to make the hexagon pattern facing sort of this way, so you know, like breakout blocks, like this sort of a pattern. The only problem is that if you do it this small, it sort of looks almost like a funky square more than a hexagon. And if you do it like one block longer, like this, it looks more like a diamond than I mean, that's done really badly, but it looks more like a diamond than a hexagon, and I wasn't really happy with any of those designs. Whoops, what's going on? That usually fixes it. And then I sort of came up with this design. Now, this was something that I just threw together really quickly. Never really intended for it to be like a hexagon design, but I noticed that when you sort of look at it on an angle like that, you start to get that hexagon mesh design, sort of going the tessellating hexagons. And so I thought that looked quite cool. I did this little patch just to show you guys what it looked like with the wall and the monoliths or pylons or whatever they are, and just to give you a basic idea of what the actual design looks like. So let me know if you like that, guys. If you do like that, I'm not 100% sure on it. I mean, I don't mind the way it looks, but at the same time, I'm not 100% certain. So let me know your opinion on that. And if you guys like it, we'll go ahead with it, and I'll do it across the entire facility. If not, feel free to send me in video responses with other ideas for the flooring of Black Aperture. Keep in mind though, guys, that whatever you send in must be 100% spawn free. Yeah, because I don't want any mobs being able to spawn up on the surface here. Now, another thing that happened between the last episode and today's episode is I've finally completed the wall. So it goes now the entire way around the facility. And over here you can see that I've been messing around with the half slabs, trying to get some sort of a design that works. As you can see, I was originally going for a much larger design, something sort of like this. The problem with a design like this, it does look... I mean, the first problem, of course, is the fact that it's not actually a hexagon. This is an octagon, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yep. And also, it doesn't tessellate. And I wanted a pattern that tessellated. I didn't want to have diamonds in the middle as well. So I ended up scrapping this idea. But yeah, as I said, the wall is now extending the whole way along the facility. I did originally start doing that by hand, and I actually got quite good at it as well. And the beautiful thing about this design is that all you need once you, say if you make one of these towers and you want to continue the design, all you need is what I call the key, and that's essentially the first few blocks or so of the first few. So like for example, here up the top, we've got 3 iron to begin with and 1 iron on the side here. The 1 iron on the side here lets me know that that's the end of the iron section, and it's 3 glass, 3 iron, that kind of thing. Down here again, 1 iron. Over there you got 2 glass, and so then it'd start with iron and so on and so forth. So as long as you get the first few blocks, like what their key is, you can then continue the pattern the whole way along, which is quite cool. It was quite a fun little project. But then when I got about halfway through, first I needed a Black Aperture episode pretty quick smart, so I didn't really have time to go along and do the whole wall by hand. So I was going to need to use MC Edit to speed up the process, and also I am actually planning a somewhat of a secret project, and that's going to require quite extensive use of MC Edit. So I decided that I'd need a little bit of practice with the program anyway, so I used MC Edit to continue the wall along here. Now the problem with using MC Edit to extend the wall, or one of the problems, is that a lot of the lights seem to be a little bit glitchy. Like if you go too far away, they turn off, and you need to actually go up close to them or update a block beside them or whatever to get them to work properly. They're still on, they just haven't updated any of the blocks around them and made them lit. But yeah, I quite like the look of the wall. I love the way it glows as well, and you don't really see any of the anything that's lighting the wall. It's quite cool. Now, one of the other problems with using MC Edit to do the wall is I was originally planning on having this mountain, keeping it extended over the platform, or the half slabs here, and just slamming the wall into the side of it, and then continuing on the other side, and sort of just keeping this great big mountain there. And then I was going to probably carve the Black Aperture logo into it, but totally forgot that when I'm pasting the wall, that it's going to paste the air blocks around it as well, and that cut out a big chunk of the mountain down the bottom here. Had this big ugly overhang, and so I thought I'd just cut the whole thing back to this point here. Now I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with this anymore. I might still leave it as is and carve in the Black Aperture logo here, or I might try and curve the mountain and try and actually make it look kind of natural, like it comes to a natural decline just at these walls. Because around the sides here you'll see that I did cut out a bunch of areas so that I could like work underneath these the pylons. Obviously here's not the best example since there's just a swamp down below. I think you'll probably see it a little bit better over here maybe. Like for example, you can see that this edge of this tree is cut off, and then yeah, you can sort of see it here. I did cut out a bunch of ground here just so that I could work underneath the the problem. Now what I plan to do with this now is I want to try and make this look as seamless as possible. So you just saw there one of the lighting glitch updates. I don't know if you guys saw that. But what I'm planning to do is I will be raising this ground up one more block just so that it sits flush with the walls, and then I want to try and make this transition between the walls and nature seem as natural as possible. So I'll do something like that, like layer it along, just so it looks like a natural progression. So that's the outside wall. Don't worry too much about these elevators here. They were just 1.3 testing. And that brings me to my next point, is that the Black Aperture elevator in the center here, what was going to be my main project for Phase 1, is now completely out of order. as you guys are aware, piston elevators no longer work with 1.3, which is a shame. I have a feeling that this might be either fixed in the future or some smart cookie will come up with another super quick elevator that we can use. So at the moment, I'm saying that this project is on hold, unfortunately. Now what that means, as you've probably noticed from the title already, is that this skips us past phase 1, unfortunately. Phase 1 of Black Aperture was going to be this central column, which I'm nicknaming the core, and the core was going to compose the elevator and a couple of other elements, which I won't go into just yet. So what I'm planning on doing actually is putting phase 1 on hold until we get some sort of a solution for the center column, so some sort of a new elevator or something like that. In the meantime, I wanted to allot how much space I was going to use for the core. I think I might actually use a little bit more than what I've marked out here. Maybe make it a little bit longer this way. Not too much though, maybe just a few blocks out to here. And so this will give me room for the other components behind the elevator that I wanted to put in. Now I also want to put in some observation walkways, so some glass maintenance access area kind of things back here, just so you can actually get in and actually look at the redstone and stuff in the elevator, because I don't know about you guys, but I think it's quite an impressive sight. So I think actually having a shaft back here where you can walk around and take a look at the redstone, that's something I wanted to incorporate in here. So I needed to clear a bit of extra space, and that's what I was doing most recently. And I had originally set this up, like I've got all the TNT wired up. I'd put in these tripwire hooks, and I was going to drop a sand block down the bottom, and that was going to set off all the TNT, and it was going to chain all the way around. But as you can see, I had a little bit of a mishap. I lagged out and accidentally went through one of the tripwires, and that set off all of this TNT. So yeah, sorry guys, it was going to be quite a cool show, but unfortunately this is what we're left with. That being said, there's no reason why we can't have fun with the TNT that's left. So let's settle that off. Get somewhere where we can see it all. And yeah, as you can see, it's not chaining quite as well as I would have liked. So I guess that's another. I guess that's kind of a good thing then, that it didn't quite go to plan. I would have made a much bigger deal out of it, and it would have been a little bit of a disappointment. But nevertheless, it's always fun to blow things up. So that was not a good idea. Actually, that works alright. Not much to go. Alright, so I'll probably finish this off super speed and catch back up with you guys. Okay, so that's gotten rid of pretty much all the stone bricks that oh, what's going on up here? Still got some more TNT to set off, obviously. Okay, so that looks like pretty much it, and that's cleared out most of the stone bricks that I'm going to need to clear out. And yes, I do plan on clearing out the remainder by hand. And I'll probably have to extend this back a little bit further, as I've said, and blow out those last few bricks as well. But so once that's done, this area is going to be, so from here all the way up to the top of wherever the tower is going to be, is designated for the core, and we'll get back to that in, like when we get back to phase 1. But for now we're moving on to phase 2, and phase 2 is the actual labs underneath Black Aperture. And so, to basically describe this, these bottom 3 levels here are going to be our various lab levels. This level here, level 4, is going to be the lobby area. So we're going to have like shops and fountains and all that kind of good stuff on this level here. Going to try and get a little bit more arty. That'll probably come in, I'm going to say phase 3. Then the 2 upper levels are going to be, at the moment I'm planning to have a Minecraft museum, so with things like the progression of redstone, boosters, so you know, your minecart boosters, that kind of thing, and also a library and a couple of other buildings along those kind of lines, so like an art gallery, that kind of thing. So top levels are going to be culture. That'll come in maybe phase 4, I think. Phase 3 for our lobby area, and phase 2, which we're in now, is going to be the labs. And so I've been trying to plan out how I want to distribute the labs across these 3 levels. And so what I've got here is my floor planning. So what I did to begin planning the floors is, as you can see, I've taken down what I consider to be the Minecraft sciences. So you've got redstone, mob spawning and behavior, farming, enchanting, potions, transportation, and combat. Now I could have missed, I could have missed a couple here, but they'll be able to fit into the categories later on, and I'll mention what I mean by categories in a moment. Now, as you can see, we've got a lot more than 3 Minecraft sciences here, so we won't be able to do just one science per floor. So I was trying to figure out how I could categorize these different Minecraft sciences, and what I came up with was this sort of categories, or these sort of categories. So on floor 1, we've got the biology wing, I guess you'd call it, and that'll cater to mob spawning, mob behavior, and farming, and anything else that fits into this category later on. Floor 2 is or B2, basement 2, is our engineering, so redstone and transportation, anything of that nature will go there. And floor B3, we've got weaponology, so potions, combat, and cannons. So that's, and yeah, cannons was something that I added post this little bit. But that's what I'm planning at the moment for the various levels. And so the way that I'm planning on doing the levels is that if we go into the elevator shaft here, you'll see that these little bits of iron along here are the walls of the various levels. So here we've got level B1, B2, and B3. And so these are the main entrance hallways, the ones where when you come out of the elevator, that's where you get into. And what I'm thinking I might do is that once I've figured out how much room I'm going to allot for the core, I'm going to bring the entrance hallways and wrap them around the core. And so that's going to be sort of just the main hallway, and then there might be little offshoot hallways out from there. And also those the main hallway is going to connect to a lot of the testing labs, and the testing labs are going to be sort of around this sort of area. So that's what I'm planning for the underground areas, and so today I thought we'd make a start on that, and I was tossing up between all those different areas, trying to figure out, these areas, trying to figure out which one we were going to make a lab for first, and I thought, since I've been thinking for a while that Mojang were going to be introducing some new potions, and we've seen the first of them being introduced in one of the latest snapshots, the night vision potion, which means that I feel we'll probably get an influx of new potion recipes soon, and I think that means we should probably focus on the potions lab, and then that way we'll have somewhere to film our potions 101. Now potions, if you remember, we're going to be on floor B3 in weaponology. So I'm going to go down to floor B3 and I'm going to start getting some area ready for us. Alright, so as you can see guys, I'm down here on the bottom level of our elevator shaft, and I've sort of renovated the area a little bit. I've carried along the hallway design that I've got upstairs on the same level as my mob spawning lab. I do quite like this design for the hallways. The walls look a little bit bare, but I'm hoping that when I start adding in doors for the different testing chambers and storage areas and offices and all that kind of jazz, that it should look a little bit more populated. I actually think I'm going to put a stone brick block here just because that sunken corner doesn't quite look right. Yeah, like that. And so I've carried the corridor around the corner here, and I think this is where we'll be having our potions lab. Now, I quite like these doors. I've got similar doors for the spawning lab upstairs. The only difference is that on the other side of the doors in the spawning lab, we've got iron blocks here instead of glass. Sorry, the glass panes, which means that you can't see through them. I didn't intend for you to be able to see through the doors and see the lab on the other side. I don't honestly think that's much of an issue. I kind of actually quite like that. And I mean, most of the time, unless you actually go up to the door and sit here staring through the glass panes, you don't see much through these gaps anyway. And I don't. I mean, it kind of works with the spawning lab upstairs, but downstairs here, I didn't want to have the glass panes on one side and then not have them on the other. I wanted to try and keep it uniform. And like I said, I don't really too much mind the way you can see through the doors there. I think that's quite cool. And I also like being able to see the piston arms in the doors and have these little trimmings. I think it looks pretty sciencey myself. But yeah, as you can see, I've started to do a little bit of work on the potions lab here. I've just been sort of trying to find ways of carrying the same sort of design patterns that I've been using out in the hallway here and using them in the potions lab, but also trying to make it a little bit different. So that's why, as you can see, I've got like little bits that branch off the sides here and a little bit that goes to the middle, that kind of thing. What I'm planning at the moment for the potions lab, as you can see, I've cleared out a little bit of area, and down here is where we'll actually be making the potion workstation, I guess. So we come and make all of our potions. Up here, I'm thinking is where we're going to have our test subjects. So we'll have a chamber for like zombies, one for skeletons, one for creepers, one for villagers, pigs, some of the friendly animals. Maybe have a 3-high one somewhere for Enderman. And I'm thinking we could probably have these test chambers run all the way around the outside of the potions lab, if we've got enough mobs to fill them, that is. If not, they'll probably just curve around the back here and just be along the back half of the potions lab. And to begin with, I'll probably just start by using a spawn egg and putting a mob in there, and it'll be just for aesthetics. But later on, I do actually want... basically what I'm thinking is that, as I've said, we'll have test subjects in here, and over at the potions lab, we'll have up the front sort of a larger little test chamber, and that'll be where we're testing on... like the potions on mobs. And I'm thinking what will happen is we'll probably have a button or something by each of these, and I keep forgetting I'm in creative mode, by each of these doors, and so you'll be able to click the button and select that particular test subject. I'm thinking either the floor will open up, the mobs will drop down and be carried along by water streams underground over to our testing area. My only concern with that is that, as you can see by these particles, we are very close to bedrock. I mean, we've only got a few, layers, 5 layers until we're in the void. So we don't have a whole lot of room to play with. I quite like the way that the particles fill up this area, especially considering it's the potions lab. It gives you the idea that there's like all fumes and chemicals and stuff floating around in the air a little bit, so you'd have to wear like a hazmat costume or something like that. But yeah, I quite like the particles floating around, but that means that, as I've said, we don't have a whole lot of space to play with underground. So another thought that I had would be to have the mobs actually come up into the chambers from underneath, and then when we select them, have them float up using water and then into channels and float over to that front testing chamber there. But yeah, so the test chambers here are going to go through a couple of different stages. As I said, I'll initially start off just by using a mob spawn egg to spawn the mobs in there, and it'll just be an aesthetic kind of thing. Then I'll have some sort of a test chamber or test subject call feature, so like a button or something, which will transport the mobs over to the front. And then I'll put some sort of mechanism in there for replacing the test subject. So at first, again, that'll probably just be like a mob spawner, which only turns on when there's no mob in here, waits for one mob to spawn, sends it up, and then turns the spawner off, closes this, and then doesn't spawn another mob until we use this test subject. So that's probably the way that it'll do it to begin with. I'm actually tempted to, at some point, somewhere upstairs in like the mob testing labs and stuff like that, actually build model spawning labs. So very much like the type that Etho made all the way back in, I think Alpha, maybe Beta, and actually have that funnel mobs through mob separators, again on the same level, and then send them over to here to their various test chambers. Just because I think that, since I'm using creative, I don't want to abuse it too much, and so I think that'll be really cool, having mobs floating around the place, and to our test chambers, that kind of thing. That sort of does lend itself more to mobs coming from the top into the chamber. So if we have room to play with underneath the potions lab, I might still go with dropping the mobs down and transferring them over. But if we don't have the space, I can sort of figure something out. Maybe have the mobs drop down either side here and have like a little viewing thing. So like we could have, like we could do glass here, for example, and we'd also want the decoration, aren't they? Glass panes. So we could do something like, have glass down here, and then glass panes, something like that, and like make actually like a glass tube out of it, and just have the mobs fall through down into the bottom, and then come up, and all that kind of jazz. So that's what I'm thinking as far as the testing, our test subjects, and I'm thinking you'd come down here, and this would come into like a workstation. I'll probably have like a desk made up, some sort of a little U-shaped desk. As I've said, in front of the desk we'll have our main testing chamber, so where we can throw potions at the mobs, see what the different effects have. So I'm not 100% sure, but I think throwing a damage potion at a zombie, it was either rumoured to be, planned to be, or might be in the future, like a healing potion for them, since they're already undead. Again, I haven't done any testing on that yet. The information's probably on the wiki, and you guys probably all know that already. But I do personally like testing things out myself and finding out the answers for myself, and that's kind of the whole idea with Black Aperture. So we'll test that kind of stuff on the zombies and stuff ourselves. But yeah, it'd be nice to have a different range of mobs to choose from, and we could even have zombified villages and stuff as well to test on, just to test the different ways of turning them back into the normal villages, which at the moment there's obviously only one, but you never know, there may be more in the future. Just testing stuff like that. And then we can also use that to test like our like strength potions, weakness potions, all that kind of stuff, just to see what kind of effect those have on the mobs. And then as I said, I'm thinking of having the test chamber mob thingos wrap all the way around the back and have like a semicircle sort of thing. Off to either side we'll have probably different, either like a storage area over one side, so for storing potions and the ingredients, that kind of thing, equipment. And then off to the other side we might have like a what I'd be calling like a hazardous environments testing area, so where we can actually use the potions on ourselves and see what they allow us to do. So whether we can fall from greater distances with the potions, that kind of thing. Now, another thing that I'll be looking to add into the potions testing lab is I had it in, actually I won't, I'm a fair way away from there, so I won't go all the way back there and show you that, but I did originally have an old version of the potions testing lab that I didn't really think through too well. That's upstairs, but it's completely out of order, and I'll be demolishing that sometime soon. But I had like a little observation window, and I had a couple of the little scientist guys, which I'll just show you that for anyone who hasn't seen them. There they are, and there's the villagers. Now, it might take us a while to get the one we're after, since I'm pretty sure in this update, it spawns random professions. And that being said, guys, keep suggesting, there we go, so this is what I'm talking about. So we can have these little scientist guys up in an observation room, just watching, like keeping an eye on our experiments, making sure that they're ethical to Black Aperture standards. And let's face it, Black Aperture doesn't really care too much for ethics, so but yeah, it might be cool to have them just as like a little bit of another aesthetic kind of feature. And then what I'm thinking as well, because I plan on using this lab for Potions 101 videos in the future when we get new potions, like the night vision potion, invisibility, that kind of thing. I'm planning on having the room kind of a circular room in shape, and having the desk in the middle, and above the desk we're going to have like a tower that goes up, sorry, it's more like a hole in the room or in the roof, but it'll sort of look like a tower from the outside when you get into the maintenance areas, and that'll have dispensers around it, and those will be for dispensing our different ingredients for the potions, that kind of thing, just so we can show you how to brew potions and whatever else. And what I'm thinking of doing is having that tower open, so you'll be able to see up into it and have some sort of a light show go off when you select the different potions. So that's what I'm planning at the moment, guys. I know you need to sort of use your imagination a fair bit at the moment, so you can't really tell where I'm going with this, but hopefully you get some sort of an idea and you like where the Potions Lab is going. Also, if you've got any other suggestions for the Potion Lab, please feel free to leave those in the comments section down below, and I might include them in the finished Potions Lab. And of course, if I do include your ideas, I'll give you some sort of a shout out. But yeah, I quite like the way this is looking so far. I'll have to tweak some things as well. I want to start adding in other blocks, like some ice for a little bit of extra color. But yeah, I'll keep messing around with that and show you guys in the next episode. Now, anyway, I think that's pretty much the end of today's episode, guys. So I hope you did enjoy today's episode. If you did, as always, please feel free to show that like button some love. I've been Static, and I will catch you guys next time. Around with, I know it doesn't look like too much, but my basic thought process was that with the blocks that I've got, I don't want to make just the entire surface out of bedrock, don't want to make the entire surface out of ice, don't really want to make the entire surface out of glass or dispensers, upside down pistons, anything like that. Essentially to just make the whole world look, I don't know, just too boring. I know at the moment it looks pretty boring with the half slabs, but now that I'm sort of forced to change the flooring, I thought, why not make it something interesting? And so when I was thinking of what I wanted to do in the way of flooring for Black Aperture, I straight away thought of like a hexagon sort of pattern. A lot of the time when you see futuristic stuff, or stuff that's supposed to be futuristic, hexagons, or the tessellating hexagon pattern is included. Now, I'd originally tried to make the hexagon pattern facing sort of this way, so, you know, like breakout blocks like this sort of a pattern. The only problem is that if you do it this small, it sort of looks almost like a funky square more than a hexagon. And if you do it like one, so that I could build on top of the surface and not have mobs spawn and sort of build flush with the surface as opposed to building half a block above it or whatever. However, mobs are now able to spawn on these upside down half slabs, which means that this surface is no longer spawn free, which is an absolute pain. That means I've got to come up with a new way of, or a new flooring design for Black Aperture to stop mobs from spawning. And so I was toying with a couple of ideas. Now, I don't have many blocks I can work with, basically just bedrock, ice, glass, and a couple of others. And so this is a design that I've been toying. What's going on, guys? Static here, and welcome back to Black Aperture. Now, between the last episode and today's episode, a lot of stuff's happened. Not so much in the facility, but more to do with Minecraft. As I'm sure you're all aware by now, the 1.3 update has come out, and that's ruined a lot, or not, I shouldn't say ruined, but it's broken a lot of things in Black Aperture. The first is the surface up here. I did originally have the surface set up with these upside down half slabs, block longer, like this. It looks more like a diamond than I mean, that's done really badly, but it looks more like a diamond than a hexagon, and I wasn't really happy with any of those designs. Whoops, what's going on? That usually fixes it. And then I sort of came up with this design. Now, this was something that I just threw together really quickly. Never really intended for it to be like a hexagon design, but I noticed that when you sort of look at it on an angle like that, you start to get that hexagon mesh design, sort of going the tessellating hexagons. And so I thought that looked quite cool.